Falcons EdTech Tutorials. On this episode, Intro to Socrative with Dr. Ausman.
Hi folks, so I want to share a wonderful tool that I've been using in my classes, and it's called Socrative. And you can go to the Socrative.com website and just log in. And there's two kinds of logins, student and teacher. And so I'm going to log into the teacher account that I've created just so that I can show you a few of the tools. The wonderful thing about Socrative is that students don't have to have any kind of download or app on their phone in order to use it, in the same way that you don't have to have an app downloaded to use Kahoot. But the best part about this particular app is that you can use it for assessments of a bit of a deeper level. You can choose the pacing, and you can also email the PDF results of student quizzes back to them, which is one of the big reasons why I use this app. When you open it up, you're going to see the different rooms. Now, you can have one room for free and use this app, which I did when I taught summer school. I had one section, and so I created my class. For this year, I've actually purchased it, which is $45 US for the app, which is actually a fantastic price. And I've got my different classes, including my home room, which is, for my case, Ausman T, a room where I use to test some of the features, and then some of the classes that I'm teaching as well for the year. The room that I'm in right now is for Extra Science 402, and I'm going to go through a couple of features there. I'll start with the Rooms button, and the Rooms button shows us our different classes, and what I've done is import my student roster from GPI with all of the student email addresses there. So that's great. When I go back to quizzes, for example, I can see my group of quizzes that I've created, and you can make different folders, and I've got them for some of the courses that I teach. In making a quiz, you just click the Add Quiz button here on the right, and you can type in new questions and make a quiz, and I'll show you one of the ones that I've made recently. So here's one I used to test out the app earlier in the fall, so that I knew that students were receiving the emails of their quizzes when I returned it to them. What's nice is that you can just start by making a title, and then you just add new questions. So you can see how this might work. You can edit, save, move them up and down, and so forth. You can add images, like I did here for some of these atom pictures. And when you add a question, you can choose one of three types. If you choose a short answer, you can put in multiple versions of the answer. So for example, if I was asking the question for the name of a particular atom, and that, or compound rather, and the name was iron 2 chloride, I could have answers where I accept it capitalized or not capitalized, or something like sulfide, do I use the PH or do I use the F, which is also fine. If you add a question, I can add a multiple choice question, put that in here, and I notice there's actually the function elements, and that gives you all of your math equations and a math equation editor keyboard with all of the components that you might need. Okay, right up to integrals and such, which doesn't apply to us in high school. And I can also, for things like chemistry, use the subscript and superscript right here in the question typing, which has been amazing for my chemistry classes. So I'm just going to delete that one question because I don't want to actually change my quiz. So let's say I've made a quiz and I save and exit that quiz, and I actually want to launch it in my class. So if I go back to launch, I have a couple of different options: quiz, space race, and exit ticket. What's interesting is that fundamentally these things are the same. So if I launch a quiz, it means that each student on their device can write this quiz, and all that data is tabulated here on the screen, and you can see student results coming in real time. So I'll show you how that looks. But first I'm going to hit launch. And I'm in the SC402 room, which is important to note. So when you launch a quiz, you launch it in a particular room. Let's say I'm going to give the students that mini quiz again. So I would hit next, and then I have a number of different options. I can do instant feedback, which means that if students answer a question and get it right or wrong, they get instant feedback about their answer, and you can type in an explanation when you build your quiz to give that. Open navigation, which is a typical test writing scenario where students can go at their own pace and write the quiz. Or teacher paced, where all the students do question number 1 and then you move to question 2 and so forth. I'm going to choose open navigation here because that's generally how students write a test. Now, because I've put a class roster in, which I copy and pasted from GPI, the require names portion is blocked out. If you're having students type in their own names, and I'll explain a little bit about how that works, they would have to type in their name. I can also choose to shuffle the questions and shuffle the answers so that question 1 for one student might be question 8 for another, and similarly options A, B, C, D, or E, if you're using that, would get shuffled around for the students as well. They get recollated at the end when you yourself are looking at the marks, but that means people sitting next to each other wouldn't have a chance to copy. Also, I tend to click Show Final Score so that when students finish their quiz, they can see what they got, 8 out of 10 or whatnot, and have some kind of feedback immediately before they get emailed a PDF result. One attempt is interesting because if you're someone who wants to give students just one shot at this test, you can keep this clicked. But if you turn off the one attempt, it means that students can log in again in order to give the test another go. If I click that, it would have launched it into the room, but I don't want my SE 402 students to think that there's a new test today that they hadn't heard about. Let me go to a report of one that's finished, however, and this is that mini quiz that I used as to test drive the email feature that I'm going to talk about. So here, all of the names of my students are here. They're blocked out. If I click this, you can see them, and I'll just sort of click off them to maintain the privacy. But I can see all the students' answers. I can also see who was absent that day, and perhaps like a student down here who didn't complete the quiz. So that's interesting as well. Now, if I look at my options after the quiz is completed, and what's interesting is while the students are writing, you can actually see the marks coming in. And you can see students' choices as they go along. As you can see, this one was fairly straightforward, although some students had a little bit of trouble with it. I can choose to email my students, and if I click this button, it means that students are going to get an email to their Western Quebec School Board account. You can include the corrections and the explanations if you've put in explanations on the email, or on the answer key, rather. I've opened up my own email because I participated in the quiz, and so students in their Western Quebec inbox will see this email here, and they can just click their quiz, and they can see what they got on the quiz and how that would look when corrected. If they got a question wrong, it will actually show the corrected answer if you want that. You can choose that, or you can choose to just have right and wrong answers. And that way students can do the corrections on their own if you'd like that. So I gave this one as a test to someone else. And you can see even the images show up, and students do have their physical test back. So even though they write the quiz in class on a device, on their phone, they do get an email back to their inbox. Oh, we're not going to Socrative. Here we go. So there's that. What about for you in your mark book? If I click Export, I can click Complete Results Excel, and it gives me an Excel sheet that has all of the students' names and all of the marks that they got, along with which ones they got correct and incorrect by question. The individual student PDFs would be if I wanted to download a file folder of all of the PDFs that students would otherwise be emailed. So you would have a zip folder with 26 quizzes in it, for example. A results summary PDF, which is all of the student results, and an answer key if you want to print just a plain answer key for your test that you've created. You can print any of the quizzes you've created as PDF files as well. So you can download them or email them to you, and that's another thing, which is great. So when I go to my rooms, or when I go to my quizzes, I can see that I have a huge number of quizzes, and this is that download feature right here. So if I do want a PDF copy of a quiz that I made, it's great. So how do students actually use this app? If I go back to the home page for Socrative, the students will click Student Login. Now, if you have not inputted a class roster, that's not a problem. You can just make a quiz and launch it. And so in the early days of using the app, I hadn't imported my class list from GPI, and I had students just joining the quiz from the student login page. And how they would do that is very simple. They'd click student login, go to SCE 402, that's all they would have to enter, and then type in their name. And then as students do the quiz, it would all come in. The thing is, sometimes you get a little bit funny names, and students can log in more than one time and try the quiz more than once. So if you're flexible with that, and you're like, okay, if you get to the end and find out you got 4 out of 10 and you want to go again, students can just log in and write their name in there again and give it another go. If you want students to use the correct roster name, when I go to my room here and I look at my roster, I do have students' ID numbers, and I've assigned those based on their email address from Western Quebec. I've given them a 3-digit ID number so that when they log in, student login, they'll choose their room, SCE 402, and put their code in, 101 in the case of that student, and their quiz will show up immediately on their device. So in the classroom, students can do their quiz, they can complete the assessment, get a result right away, and then as soon as everybody's finished the quiz, I can click, close out or finish for an assessment that's happening. I'll get a report, and then I can email that report to all of the students, and it shows up in their inbox. So they get more than just the feedback of their 8 out of 10. They actually get a PDF file sent to their Western Quebec email address, and they can see how they did. So I just wanted to share this with you because it's really doing a lot of work for me. I teach 6 sections, over 100 students, and sometimes when you're giving a really direct assessment, this is a wonderful way to go. You can also, I want to just share with you one type of quiz that's a little bit more complicated, and the reason is that some teachers have struggled, for example, with the kinds of typesetting and formatting in other online applications. And what's nice about Socrative is that you really can put in some of these formulas, and you can use arrows and the kinds of things that we need in mathematics and science. So I highly recommend this app. It does give you, as I say, an Excel spreadsheet, and it does give students feedback, and it gives them detailed feedback in terms of emailing them a really clean PDF. And I think that's important for both our youngest learners and our students in the most senior courses.